Oh, hello, Lisa. Are you still stuck at home in your pajamas staring at the computer today? Not having to commute and simply working from home must be easy for you. That day, I was struggling with a complicated legal contract, and the room was wrapped in silence. However, the silence was broken by a call from my younger sister, Zoe. From the other end of the line came her sugary voice, accompanied by the noisy background of her children. She only sees my professional daily life as nothing more than a hobby of a person with too much free time. I suppressed my rising anger and responded in as flat a tone as possible. What do you need, Zoe? I am in the middle of something that requires extreme concentration right now. Yes. Very impressive. Well then, I'll keep it short. She giggled and went on to say something unbelievable. Keep next Tuesday free. Dylan and I have something to do. You'll take care of our kids. Thanks in advance. Her children are Carter, who is 8 years old, Avery, who is 5, and Mason, who is 3. 3 stormy children for an entire day? My thoughts froze for a moment at those words. She intended to completely ignore my schedule and my will. Why should I be the one to look after them? I have work to do. Then Zoe, with genuine puzzlement in her voice, declared, "Oh, come on, Lisa. You don't have kids, and you don't need to commute. You have plenty of free time, right? Use some of that extra time for your cute nephew and nieces once in a while." That was the bombshell. It was an unbelievably insensitive and selfish declaration of war against me, my career, and my life. Pressing my temples with my fingers, I calmly and firmly refused. No, I'm fully booked with an important online meeting with a client on Tuesday. Absolutely impossible. Without waiting for her reply, I ended the call. She has no idea how delicate my work is or how much concentration it requires. My specialty is the translation of legal contracts. In this world, a single difference in the interpretation of one word can decide the future of a company. Hundreds of pages of documents, late-night negotiations with lawyers, days where not a single moment of carelessness is allowed. This job is by no means something one can do while multitasking. It is anything but easy. My younger sister Zoe has been a taker since childhood. She is the kind of person who always thinks only about what she can get from others. She would wear my favorite clothes without asking and never apologize when she stained them. She would shamelessly copy the reports I had worked all night to finish. For her, my time, my effort, and my pride as her older sister were things to be used at her convenience. Now that she has become a mother, the only difference is that her own children have been added to that list of things to impose on me. That is why I had already decided this time. I had to clearly say no to her selfish dependence and her insult to my dignity. A few days passed after that battle over the phone, and Tuesday morning arrived. Because I had firmly rejected her that day, perhaps Zoe had finally learned her lesson. With such faint hope in my heart, I sat at my desk as usual, sharpening my focus. My schedule for that day included reviewing the final draft with a German law firm in the morning and then a routine client briefing in the afternoon. It was supposed to be an important day when even a moment's lapse of attention could not be tolerated. However, that silence was suddenly broken a little after 10 a.m. Ding dong, the cheerful electronic chime cut through my concentration. I didn't expect any delivery that day. Suspicious, I peered into the intercom monitor, only to be confronted with the worst nightmare imaginable. There stood Zoe with a beaming smile, beside her husband Dylan looking awkward, and at their feet 3 little monsters clamoring to rush in. Carter, Avery, and Mason. "Lisa, surprise!" Hearing Zoe's carefree voice from the speaker, I could not suppress a deep sigh. For a moment I considered ignoring them, but knowing her, she would keep ringing the bell forever until I opened the door. Resigned, I dragged my heavy steps toward the entrance. As soon as I opened the door, Zoe triumphantly exclaimed, "I knew you were home," and barged in without waiting for my reply. Dylan gave a weak nod and said, "Hey, Lisa. Sorry to intrude," while the children shouted with excitement and charged straight into the living room. "Sorry, but I'm really swamped with work right now. What do you want?" Carter was bouncing on the sofa as if it were a trampoline. Avery was trying to pull out my professional reference books with eager curiosity, and Mason was covering the TV remote in drool. Turning my eyes away from them, I spoke firmly. "I told you, didn't I? I have important work today." Zoe replied as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "I've been thinking about it." Even if you don't come over to my place, if you just watch the kids here at your house, it kills two birds with one stone, right? You can get your work done and we get help. Perfect plan, don't you think? At her words, I felt something beyond anger, almost a kind of awe. Is it possible for someone to ignore another person's circumstances completely like this? It's not perfect. My plan is to focus on my work in a quiet environment. Your plan disrupts my work. They don't go together at all. Oh, don't be so uptight. It'll be fine. The kids will behave. The moment she said that, Avery pulled a thick legal dictionary from the shelf and it crashed to the floor with a loud bang. I saw the corner of the book leave a small scratch on the solid wood flooring. Something inside me gave a painful creak. Next to her, Dylan, who had been looking uncomfortable, finally opened his mouth. Hey, Lisa, is translation work really that tough? A part-timer at my company said she could do data entry while watching her kids. That careless remark, though not ill-intentioned, hurt me in a deeper way than Zoe's calculating words. Dylan, my work is not data entry. A single mistranslation can escalate into a lawsuit worth millions of dollars. It's not the kind of work that can be done half-heartedly, the way you're imagining. I spoke as calmly as I could, but my voice carried the edge of ice. And Zoe, you know perfectly well, don't you? The reason you want to leave the kids with me isn't because you have something you absolutely can't miss. It's because you want to go shopping with Dylan, isn't it? I'm not a babysitter, so pay for a real babysitter with your own money. At my pointed words, Zoe's face stiffened slightly. I had struck a nerve. So what if that's true? I need a break sometimes too. You don't have kids, you're not tied down by time, so you couldn't possibly understand what it's like to struggle with child rearing every day. You make plenty of money, so you should pay for the babysitter. It's not because I don't understand your feelings that I'm refusing to help. I'm telling you that as a professional, I absolutely cannot interrupt today's work. I am not a professional babysitter. Please just take the children home. I delivered what sounded like a final ultimatum, and it was at that very moment. The smartphone in my pocket vibrated quietly, but with an undeniable, commanding force. When I looked at the screen, my heart froze. Silicon Valley Legal Office. It was an incoming emergency video call from my most important client, the one whose massive contract I had successfully secured just days ago. An unscheduled call. Something might have gone wrong. This was a call I absolutely had to answer. Sorry, excuse me. I turned my back on Zoe and the others and headed toward my study. But Zoe suddenly grabbed my arm. Hey, where do you think you're going? We're not done talking yet. It is done. This is an urgent work call. I don't have time to deal with your selfishness. I shook off her hand, closed the study door, and pressed the call button with trembling fingers. Hello, this is Lisa. Has something happened? Fortunately, it was not trouble, but rather an urgent need to confirm some minor adjustments to the contract. Even so, the discussion dragged on for 15, then 20 minutes. While focusing every nerve on the monitor, I couldn't stop being aware of the atmosphere beyond the door in the living room. The chaos from earlier had vanished into an eerie silence. A bad premonition climbed up my spine. I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Walker. May I ask for a little time? There seems to be a small emergency. Thankfully, Mr. Walker readily agreed. My apologies. You were in the middle of work. Call me back later. For the first time in my career, I interrupted a client meeting on my own. Something irreversible had happened. My instincts told me so. I pressed the disconnect button and quietly opened the study door. And then I was struck speechless by the scene in the living room. Sitting alone on the sofa were Carter, Avery, and Mason. There was no sign of Zoe or Dylan anywhere. On the table lay a single note. We'll be back in 2 or 3 hours, so take care of them. With love, from Zoe. I then understood what it meant to have my blood drain from my face. While I was pinned down by the work call, they had abandoned their children and slipped away. Rage threatened to turn my vision black. I immediately rushed to the front door and threw it open. As expected, their minivan was just about to pull out of the parking lot. Zoe! At the sound of my voice, lower than I had ever heard it myself, Dylan in the driver's seat flinched and hit the brakes. Zoe, sitting in the passenger seat, looked at me with an embarrassed expression. I slowly approached the car and tapped on the passenger side window. Zoe hesitantly rolled it down. What? We're in a hurry, you know. Yes, you are in a hurry. In a hurry to go shopping. And for that, you endangered my career and abandoned your children in an empty house. My voice was not trembling with rage. On the contrary, it was as cold as ice. That very calmness seemed to frighten them even more. If you don't return to the house right now and take responsibility for your children, I will call the police and CPS right here. I will report it as is suspected child neglect. My home has security cameras installed. The entire sequence of you entering, leaving the kids, and walking away is all recorded. At my words, Zoe and Dylan's faces turned pale. That's too much of an exaggeration. It's just family helping each other out. This is not helping. This is attempted neglect. Resigned, Dylan turned off the engine. Zoe bit her lip in frustration and muttered under her breath. Fine, we'll take them, okay? Unbelievable, choosing work over family. I turned my back on them in silence and went back into the house. To my client, I apologized with a smile, saying, it was just a family matter, and finished the meeting perfectly. But beneath that calm mask, a burning flame of vengeance was raging in my heart. About 2 weeks later, on a Friday night, ping, a cheerful notification sound chimed, and a new message from Zoe appeared. Lisa, are you free next Wednesday? Actually, I'm getting together with some high school friends for the first time in ages. It's a really important reunion. Could you please watch the kids for just 3 hours? I'll definitely make it up to you. Reading that message, I couldn't help but let out a dry laugh. Completely oblivious to my humiliation and anger from that day, she was still trying to rope me into babysitting. Her head was clearly filled only with her own pleasures, and she easily said, make it up to you, which carried no weight whatsoever. It was almost laughable. Yet this was precisely the perfect timing I had been waiting for. I deliberately left her without a reply for several hours, letting her stew in impatience. Then, late at night, I finally responded. Concise, but with a professional tone in mind. Unfortunately, I have an important face-to-face meeting with a client outside the city from morning until evening next Wednesday. I won't be able to return home all day. Sorry, I can't be of help. As expected, her reply came a few minutes later, laced with irritation. Fine, got it. Behind those short words, I could clearly feel her saying suspiciously, you're lying anyway. But it didn't matter to me. I quietly confirmed that the first stage of my plan had succeeded and turned off my phone. And then came the fateful Wednesday. Carrying my work laptop, I left the house with light steps and drove away. My destination was a stylish cafe by the lake, a little outside the city. Taking a seat and ordering a cappuccino, I opened my laptop and began working calmly. At 11 a.m., the time when Zoe would likely arrive at my house, the first call came in. The name Zoe appeared on the screen. I didn't touch it at all, letting it ring until it switched to voicemail. Then came the first message. Lisa, are you not home? You said you had a meeting, but have you already left? I didn't even open it. Soon, message notifications began to flood my screen in rapid succession. Hey, where are you? I'm already in front of your house. Please, Lisa, answer the phone. I called the waiter and ordered another cappuccino. Meanwhile, my smartphone kept vibrating as if broken, its notification light flashing nonstop. At last, her messages turned into anger and insults. Unbelievable. You're the worst. You're doing this on purpose, aren't you? Your personality is disgusting. We're not sisters anymore. Don't ever contact me again. I gently traced the final notification with my finger, and then I smiled faintly. Yes, gladly, I'll do just that. Then I slowly finished my coffee and closed my laptop. In the end, I don't know what Zoe did. Perhaps she hurriedly put the children back in the car, canceled the reunion, and went home. Or perhaps she cried to someone else and tried to find a new free babysitter. Either way, it was no longer any concern of mine. This was not mere revenge. This was self-defense to protect my dignity. My work, my time, and my life are not things to be sold cheaply for someone else's convenience. I did it to make her understand that. Since then, all contact from Zoe had completely stopped. If she could reflect even a little on her mistake and keep her distance, that would be enough. That was what I had begun to believe, until one afternoon. A direct message arrived on my social media from our mutual friend, Lisa. Lisa, are you okay? Zoe seems to be spreading things about you. Attached was a screenshot. It was a long post Zoe had written on her own social media. There is nothing more painful than being betrayed by your only sister. For her to refuse being involved with my children is unbearable. I just wanted a little bit of help, but I was coldly rejected. In her story, I had become the cruel, selfish single sister, bullying her poor younger siblings struggling with motherhood. She had flawlessly cast herself as the tragic heroine. In the comment section, friends who knew nothing of the situation left sympathetic words like, "That's unbelievable. It must be tough on you, Zoe. What a horrible sister." I held back the anger rising inside me with calm restraint. Reacting emotionally and posting a rebuttal comment on her post would be the most foolish move of all. After thinking it through, I decided to make a post on my own social media about the incident. Have you ever had someone assume that because you work from home, you're free and always flexible? With that one sentence, I began to write in a narrative style about the countless unreasonable demands I had endured. The story of my younger sister barging into my home, belittling my profession, forcing me to interrupt my work, and nearly abandoning her children there. The story of how I fabricated a meeting as an excuse to go out, ignoring her relentless attempts to reach me. I described all of this plainly, yet in a way that appealed to the emotions of those who read it. At the end of the post, I concluded with these words: "This is not the story of someone special. If you have ever experienced something similar, please share it. How can we protect the dignity of our work?" As the finishing touch, I also attached screenshots of some of Zoe's self-centered messages to me. The moment I pressed the post button, I felt a flicker of unease. How many people would this truly reach? I wondered. But within hours, that unease transformed into astonishment and certainty. The number of likes skyrocketed into the hundreds, then the thousands, and the comment section overflowed with voices of empathy and outrage. I thought this was my story. I'm a freelance designer, and my relatives constantly ask me to just make a logo for free. I understand that raising children is hard, but that doesn't justify dumping the responsibility on others. This sister is completely in the wrong. Precisely because they are family, boundaries are absolutely necessary. Thank you for raising such an important issue. Graphic designers, programmers, writers, consultants, freelancers, and remote workers from all over the world, across countless fields, began sharing their own stories, and my post transformed into a vast platform that amplified their voices. Shares multiplied, and within a few days, several online media outlets had picked it up with headlines like, #not a free babysitter. The quiet rage of remote workers explodes on social media. Naturally, this buzz could not possibly escape the ears of Zoe or her friends. Soon, another message came from Lisa. "Lisa, that viral post. Was that you? If so, it's amazing. Zoe's social media is in chaos right now." It seemed that among Zoe's friends, some had begun connecting the dots between her poetic lament and my post. Wait, is this about Zoe's sister? That's not what she told us at all. Zoe, what really happened? The wind had shifted in her comment section from sympathy to suspicion. With her social standing now in jeopardy, Zoe must have panicked. She chose the worst possible move, pouring fuel onto the fire. She quietly deleted the poetic post, without any explanation. That action was, more than anything, an unspoken admission to her friends. Everything written in that anonymous post was true. The fragile illusion she had built of poor me collapsed with a resounding crash. Through her own lies and deceit, she had lost her social credibility, something that cannot easily be regained. I quietly watched it all unfold. What filled my chest was not so much the thrill of victory, but rather a kind of emptiness in the sense that this was not the final resolution. Punishment in the world of the internet was only the prologue. The true confrontation had to take place face-to-face in the real world. And that stage had already been set. It was my grandmother's 80th birthday party, just a week away from then. A day when all our relatives would gather at her estate. On the day of my grandmother's birthday party, it was a picture-perfect summer afternoon, and the celebration was held in the lush backyard of her home. Tables covered with white tablecloths lined the lawn, and the cheerful laughter of relatives mixed with the lively shouts of children, creating a pleasant hum of noise. Yet despite the harmonious atmosphere, my mind was crystal clear and sharpened to a fine edge. I would bring everything to a conclusion right there and then. I was already prepared. When I arrived at the venue, Zoe glared at me from afar with piercing eyes. Beside her, Dylan averted his gaze awkwardly. Since the incident on social media, it was plain to see what position she now held among the relatives. Everyone seemed to be keeping their distance from the couple. After greeting my grandmother, the guest of honor, and stepping away to get a drink, Zoe finally approached me with deliberate steps. She had been waiting for the moment when I was alone. "Lisa," her voice was low, trembling with anger. "What on earth have you done? Posting such nonsense on the internet? My friends have completely lost their trust in me." I quietly took a sip of the lemonade in my glass and slowly turned to face her. "Nonsense? Tell me, Zoe, which part of the story I wrote was not true?" "All of it. Every word of it was a malicious lie. You exaggerated everything." Just as she was about to erupt and shout something more, a clear yet calm voice cut between us. "Zoe, that's enough." It was our mother's voice. Standing beside my father, watching us with worry, she spoke quietly but loudly enough for everyone in the garden to hear. "Your father and I have always wanted to be there for you whenever you are in need. That's why, every time you said, just for a little while, we took care of Carter and the others. But even last month, when your father injured his back while working in the garden and the doctor told him to rest, you insisted it was absolutely necessary and left the children with us for half a day. You didn't even notice how much pain he was in that day." At her sorrowful words, my father added quietly, "Lisa is right, Zoe. Helping each other and taking advantage are not the same. Perhaps your mother and I should have told you that much sooner." From our parents came words filled with love, but also unmistakable reproach. That broke the dam, and other relatives began to speak up. Aunt Harper, whose hobby was gardening, was next. "You said you wanted some advice on your garden, so I came over. But in the end, I spent the entire weekend laying bricks and replanting for you. And my thanks was just one bottle of iced tea, wasn't it?" "Me too." It was my cousin Ethan, who worked at an IT company, crossing his arms as he spoke. "Dylan, every time you buy a new computer, you call me over saying, 'Just take a quick look at the setup.' Last month, you had me configure everything. Your Wi-Fi router, TV, game consoles, even your smart speakers. Do you know how many hours of my weekend that took? A professional would charge no less than $200 for that job. And you thought you could brush it off with a simple family discount, please?" Their selfish acts were revealed one after another. Zoe and Dylan found themselves under the crushing weight of our relatives' stares, completely isolated. What they had always disguised as family goodwill was exposed in the harsh light of day as nothing more than exploitation. Zoe struggled desperately not to collapse into tears, and with a trembling voice she said, "But we're family. I thought helping each other was just natural." That feeble excuse was cut off sharply by none other than our grandmother. Leaning on her cane, she slowly approached us, fixing her granddaughter with a steady gaze, her expression filled with both love and unwavering sternness. "Zoe, true family exists only when we respect one another. You've used the word family far too much for your own convenience. Lisa's work, Ethan's skills, the kindness of your parents and Harper, all of it has value. All of it deserves respect. That is something you must never forget." Her words pierced the hearts of everyone present. At last, Zoe collapsed to the ground and began to cry out loud like a child. Dylan, standing beside his wife, could do nothing but hang his head in shame. After that day's party, Zoe and Dylan went around to each relative and apologized for their past discourtesies. And they formally signed a contract with a well-regarded professional babysitter service in the city, of course, paying the proper fees. As for the relationship between Zoe and me, to be honest, it may never return to the casual bond we once had. The rift that formed between us is real. Yet, out of that rift, a new kind of relationship emerged. It is a relationship built on the foundation of respect, a bond between two adults. She will never again belittle my work. And I, in turn, promise to lend her support when she truly needs help from me as a professional. In the end, genuine family bonds are not built upon one-sided sacrifice. The best kind of relationship is one created only when both sides respect each other as professional individuals.